The Valoran delegation settled into the repurposed conference center overlooking the Hudson River, their translucent skin catching the sunset in ways that made them appear to glow from within. Admiral Chen watched from across the room as Ambassador Zintoril carefully examined a simple orchid with all four of his slender hands. "You find our plants interesting?" Chen asked, approaching with 2 cups of tea. Zintoril accepted the offering with his lower right hand. "On Valora, our flora responds to touch by changing colors. Your plants remain steadfast in their appearance regardless of interaction. There is beauty in such certainty." The ambassador's mastery of English after only 2 weeks of study was remarkable, another sign of Valoran cognitive abilities. Shen had read all the preliminary reports, but seeing these beings up close still felt surreal. "You still haven't fully explained what drove you to seek us out specifically," Chen said, keeping her voice casual despite the weight of the question. "There must be thousands of developing worlds in this galaxy." Zintoril set down the teacup, his large eyes, with pupils that expanded outward like blooming flowers, focused on the horizon. "The Galactic Council maintains what they call the Harmony Protocols. Every species is evaluated, categorized, and approached at a specific developmental stage. Some are guided toward Council membership over centuries. Others are managed." "Managed how?" "Technological development is carefully controlled. Cultural exchange is limited. Some species never learn there are others among the stars at all." The ambassador's skin darkened slightly, a sign Chen had come to recognize as emotional distress. "The Council determined centuries ago that humanity's neural patterns and historical development made you uniquely unpredictable." Chen raised an eyebrow. "You make it sound like they're afraid of us." "With good reason," Zintoril replied. "Your species developed spaceflight mere decades after discovering nuclear fission. You created global communication networks and artificial intelligence in historical eye blinks. The Council observes patterns over millennia. Your rapid adaptability defies their models." "And the Valorans, where do you fit in their perfect order?" Zintoril's upper hands formed a gesture Chen couldn't interpret. "We were once like you, curious, innovative. 3,000 years under Council guidance has tempered those qualities. We became the diplomats, the mediators, useful, but increasingly sidelined as younger, more aggressive species joined the Council." Outside the window, night fell over New York, the city lights creating a mirror of the star field above. Chen considered the implications of what she was hearing. "So approaching us is an act of rebellion," she said finally. "It is an act of desperation," Zintoril corrected. "The Council grows increasingly authoritarian. Species that question policy find their resource allocations reduced, their colonies restricted. Some of us believe the only hope for galactic freedom is to form alliances outside Council control." He leaned forward. "Your people have something the Council has spent millennia engineering out of its member species, the willingness to stand against overwhelming odds." Chen's communicator chimed with a priority alert. The preliminary analysis of Valoran technology had been completed. The verification confirmed everything they claimed, and suggested capabilities they hadn't mentioned. "Ambassador," Chen said carefully, "your people clearly need allies. But partnerships require honesty. Tell me what's really coming, and then perhaps we can discuss how Earth might respond." Zintoril's skin paled to almost white. "The Council knows we've come here. They've given us 60 days to return to Valoran space and submit to judgment. After that, they will consider our actions, unsanctioned technology transfer to a quarantine species. And the penalty. There is only one penalty for such an offense," Zintoril said softly. "Correction of the historical timeline." Commander Taylor ran his hand along the smooth hull of the UES Prometheus, feeling the slight vibration of the Valoran-inspired power core beneath the metal. 5 years of collaboration had produced something neither humanity nor the Valorans could have created alone. "She's beautiful," Kelmira said, her 4 hands moving in practiced synchronization as she adjusted the calibration on her tablet. though my people would have made the energy distribution nodes more symmetrical. Taylor laughed. And we would have added twice as many weapon ports. Compromise makes for better ships. Around them, the orbital shipyard bustled with activity as engineers and technicians from both species worked side by side. Earth's first interstellar defense fleet was taking shape, 20 vessels incorporating the best of human tactical thinking with Valoran technological finesse. The Council would never approve of these designs, Kelmera said quietly, her skin shifting to a deeper blue. The adaptive targeting systems alone violate 3 different technology restrictions. Taylor nodded toward the viewport where Mars gleamed red in the distance. Good thing they don't get a vote on how we defend our system. His communicator chirped with Admiral Chen's priority code. Taylor here. Commander, we've detected unusual quantum signatures near Jupiter's L5 point. I need you to take the Prometheus for a proper shakedown. Bring Kelmera. We might need her expertise. Something in Chen's voice set off warning bells. Hostiles. Unknown. But the signature matches Azdrathi's stealth tech, according to our Valoran friends. Investigate, but do not engage unless fired upon. Within an hour, the Prometheus was accelerating out of Earth orbit, its newly installed gravitic drives operating at peak efficiency. The bridge crew, a mix of Earth's finest officers and Valoran technical advisors, monitored systems that had existed only in theoretical papers 3 years earlier. Lieutenant Park, what are we looking at? Taylor asked as they approached Jupiter's massive presence. The sensor officer frowned at her console. Intermittent quantum fluctuations consistent with a cloaked vessel, sir. But there's something odd about the pattern. It's almost like it wants to be detected. Kelmera moved to the science station, her 4 hands dancing across the interface. It's a Council intelligence scout ship. They're using an oscillating cloak, designed to be just detectable enough to test your response capabilities. Taylor leaned forward in his command chair. They're evaluating us. Yes, Kelmera confirmed. Standard Council procedure before classifying a potential threat. Lieutenant Reed, bring us in on a passive approach vector. No active targeting, but charge the pulse cannons to standby. Lieutenant Park, record everything. I want to know exactly what they're scanning for. The Prometheus glided silently through Jupiter's orbital plane, its own stealth systems, inspired by Earth's deep-sea predators, masking their approach. As they closed to within 10,000 kilometers of the fluctuation, Kelmera's console lit up with warnings. They're using deep pattern scanners, she said, her voice tight. Those are forbidden for routine surveillance. They're looking for specific weapons signatures. Taylor nodded grimly. They're not just evaluating us. They're looking for evidence to justify intervention. He tapped his command console. Helm, execute tactical pattern Sierra 3. Let's show them just enough to keep them guessing. The Prometheus banked sharply, executing a series of maneuvers that appeared random, but actually followed a complex mathematical pattern developed by human game theorists, unpredictable to anyone without the specific cultural context to recognize it. They're powering up their drive, Park reported. I think we spooked them. Good, Taylor said. Let them report back that we're not the easy target they expected. He turned to Kelmera, whose skin had paled considerably. What is it? This isn't routine surveillance, she whispered. The Council is building a case against us, against all of us. The emergency session of the United Earth Parliament stretched into its 6th hour. Delegates from every nation sat in tense silence as Ambassador Zintoral's holographic evidence played across the chamber's main display. Historical records of Council interventions spanning 2 millennia. The Brevik civilization refused Council oversight of their quantum research. Zintoral narrated as images showed a thriving blue-green world. The next image showed the same planet reduced to a barren rock. They were deemed developmentally unstable. 30 billion lives ended in a single day. Admiral Chen watched the Parliament members' faces shift from skepticism to horror as Zintoral methodically documented case after case of Council atrocities, all committed in the name of galactic harmony. The Valorans were once innovators, Zintoril continued, his voice heavy with centuries of accumulated grief. Our ancestors built the first successful consciousness transfer matrix. The Council determined such technology represented an existential risk factor and gave us a choice. Surrender all research and accept permanent technological monitoring, or face correction. Correction, Chen repeated flatly. That's their euphemism for genocide. Yes, Zintoril's skin rippled with dark patterns of distress. For 1,000 years, we have lived as second-class citizens of the galaxy, our potential deliberately stunted, our colonies restricted. When we discovered Earth, a species with creativity that reminded us of our past, many of us saw hope for the first time in generations. The Brazilian delegate rose, her face pale. Ambassador, you've shown us what happens to those who defy the Council. You've revealed that we face the same threat, but you haven't explained why we should believe we can succeed where others failed. Zintoril gestured, and the display shifted to show the Prometheus engaging the Council scout ship near Jupiter. Because you approach problems differently. Council species rely on overwhelming technological superiority. When faced with unexpected tactics, they retreat to analyze rather than adapt in real time. Your Commander Taylor improvised a response pattern that confused their most sophisticated predictive algorithms. The Chinese delegate leaned forward. You're suggesting we can defeat a galactic power because we're unpredictable. I'm suggesting, Zintoril replied, that unpredictability, combined with Valoran technology, creates something the Council has never encountered, an adversary whose responses cannot be calculated in advance. Admiral Chen stepped to the podium. Parliament members, I've reviewed the Valoran tactical assessments of Council military doctrine. Their entire strategic approach relies on overwhelming force applied according to rigid protocols. They haven't faced a genuine military challenge in over 4,000 years. Their tactics are theoretically perfect but utterly inflexible. She brought up display showing deployment patterns for Earth's newly commissioned fleet. We've incorporated Valoran drive technology with human asymmetric warfare doctrine. Our ships can appear where the Council believes impossible, using attack patterns their tactical computers will struggle to categorize. The Parliament chamber erupted in overlapping questions until the Secretary General raised her hand for silence. Admiral Chen, Ambassador Zintoril, you're asking us to commit to a conflict against a vastly superior enemy rather than consider the Council's demands. With respect, Madam Secretary, Chen replied, the Council's demand that we abandon the Valorans and submit to technological restriction isn't negotiation. It's the first step in a process that ends with Earth's subjugation or destruction. They aren't offering terms. They're assessing how easily we'll surrender our sovereignty. As the debate continued, Chen's secure communicator vibrated. The message from Commander Taylor was brief but chilling. Massive quantum disturbances detected near Valoran homeworld. Council fleet mobilizing. Estimated time to Valoran Prime. 6 hours. Chen looked up at Zintoril and saw in his eyes that he'd received the same information. The choice was no longer theoretical. It was immediate and final. Members of Parliament, Chen said, her voice cutting through the chamber, I must inform you that we've just received intelligence suggesting the Council has already made their decision about Valora. We no longer have the luxury of debate. We must decide, now, whether humanity stands with its allies. Commander Taylor stood frozen on the bridge of the Prometheus as the Valoran capital city of Luminaret disintegrated under sustained bombardment. Council dreadnoughts hung in perfect geometric formation over the planet, methodically targeting population centers with surgical precision. Helm, push us to maximum stealth, Taylor ordered, his voice tight. Senator Vex, can your people mask our quantum signature? The Valoran senator, who had been off-world when the attack began, nodded numbly. His 4 hands moved across the auxiliary control panel, though his eyes never left the view screen showing his homeworld burning. Commander, Lieutenant Park whispered, the Council ships are releasing atmospheric scrubbers. They're removing all trace of the Valorans from the atmosphere. Taylor felt cold rage building in his chest. This wasn't war. It was extermination, carried out with the dispassionate efficiency of pest control. Incoming transmission from Admiral Chen, Lieutenant Reed announced. Chen's face appeared on the command screen, her expression grim. Taylor, Parliament has authorized immediate assistance to any surviving Valorans. Earth has officially declared the Council's actions a genocide and voted unanimously to offer political asylum. Your orders are to avoid direct engagement with Council forces while extracting as many survivors as possible. Admiral, with respect, we have weapons that cold. That's an order, Commander. The Prometheus isn't ready for direct confrontation with Council dreadnoughts. Save who you can. Earth needs time to prepare. The transmission cut as a proximity alert sounded. Valoran emergency beacon detected, Park reported. Coming from the colony outpost on Esperanza. It's on the far side of Valora's third moon. The Council ships might not have reached it yet. Taylor made his decision instantly. Set course for Esperanza, maximum speed. Inform medical to prepare for mass casualties. The Prometheus slipped through the debris field of shattered Valoran orbital platforms, its Earth-designed stealth systems hiding them from Council sensors. As they approached Esperanza, the scope of the tragedy became clear. The small mining colony had become a desperate evacuation point, with thousands of Valoran refugees crowded into facilities designed for hundreds. Council cleanup ships detected on approach vector, Reed warned. 15 minutes until they're in firing range of the colony. Taylor turned to Senator Vex. How many can we evacuate in 15 minutes? The Valoran skin had turned nearly white with shock and grief. Perhaps 2,000. There are over 10,000 souls down there. Then we prioritize children and their caregivers, Taylor said firmly, and we find a way to buy more time. He turned to his tactical officer. Lieutenant Gonzalez, deploy our experimental quantum decoys. Let's see if we can convince those Council ships there's something more interesting to investigate on the far side of the system. The next 14 minutes passed in controlled chaos as the Prometheus's shuttles made continuous runs to the surface. Taylor watched the evacuation progress with growing dread. They wouldn't save everyone. Not even close. As the first Council ships appeared on long-range sensors, Taylor made a final pass through the colony's administrative building, searching for any stragglers. In a collapsed conference room, he found Ambassador Zintoril pinned beneath a fallen support beam, surrounded by the bodies of Valoran children he had evidently tried to shield. Ambassador, Taylor said, kneeling beside him, we need to get you out of here. Zintoril's normally vibrant skin was dull gray, blue blood seeping from multiple wounds. Did any survive? He asked weakly. We've evacuated almost 3,000, Taylor said, carefully lifting the beam. Mostly children. The ambassador's eyes flickered with a spark of hope. Then something of Valora will live on. He grasped Taylor's arm with startling strength. Promise me, Commander. Promise me Earth will not let this stand. Taylor lifted the injured ambassador, feeling the weight of the moment far more than the physical burden. Earth remembers its debts, Ambassador. And this is one we will never forget. 3 months after the fall of Valora, Earth had transformed. Cities once defined by soaring skyscrapers now extended deep underground, industrial complexes relocated beneath mountain ranges, and orbital defenses multiplied weekly. But the most profound changes weren't physical, they were psychological. Admiral Chen walked through the sprawling underground facility known as Nexus, where thousands of humans and Valoran survivors worked side by side. The cavernous central chamber housed a 3-dimensional tactical display spanning 20 meters, showing real-time Council fleet movements across hundreds of star systems. Admiral, a young lieutenant said, saluting as Chen approached, the Valoran survivors have completed their analysis of Council communication protocols. Chen nodded and continued to the research wing, where she found Dr. Eliza Santos conferring with Kel Mera over a holographic display of what appeared to be quantum entanglement patterns. Please tell me you found something, Chen said without preamble. Santos smiled for the first time in weeks. We have. The Valorans have been required to use Council-approved quantum communication systems for centuries. What they never told the Valorans is that these systems contain backdoors, master access keys that allow the Council to monitor all transmissions. Kelmera's 4 hands manipulated the display, highlighting complex mathematical structures. These backdoors can be reversed. We can use the Council's own communication network against them. How? Chen asked. We can inject false data streams, Santos explained. Make Council ships see phantom fleet movements, receive false orders, even misidentify friendly vessels as hostile. Chen's mind raced with possibilities. You're talking about turning their perfect communication system into a vector for chaos. Precisely, Kelmera said, her skin brightening slightly. The first sign of hope Chen had seen in any Valoran since the genocide. The Council relies on absolute information certainty. They have no protocols for handling deliberate misinformation because no species has ever attempted such a tactic against them. In the adjacent training facility, Chen found Commander Taylor supervising an unusual exercise. Teams of human special forces operators worked alongside Valoran survivors, practicing shipboarding actions against mock-ups of Council vessel interiors. The Council hasn't faced actual boarding parties in over 2,000 years, Taylor explained as Chen approached. Their internal security is designed to handle mechanical failures or individual saboteurs, not coordinated strike teams using tactics developed for urban warfare. Chen watched as the teams moved with practiced efficiency, using methods that would appear chaotic to anyone unfamiliar with Earth's long history of asymmetric combat. How soon can they be deployed? She asked. 2 weeks, Taylor replied. We've retrofitted 6 stealth shuttles with Valoran quantum masking technology. The Council won't detect them until they're physically cutting through the hull. Chen nodded, then gestured toward a separate area where Valoran children sat in circles with human teachers. And them. Taylor's expression softened. Cultural preservation teams. The children are teaching us everything they can remember about Valoran history, art, literature, while our people still have time to record it all. While they still have time. The children will be evacuated to the deep shelters when the Council comes for Earth, Taylor said quietly. If we fail, at least something of Valora will survive. Chen placed a hand on his shoulder. We won't fail. Later that evening, Chen met with ambassadors in Toril in the medical wing. His wounds were healing, but the hollowness in his eyes spoke of deeper injuries. My people were pacifists for 30 generations, he said softly as Chen took a seat beside his bed. We believed submission was preferable to conflict. Now I watch humans prepare for a war that should never have been yours. It became ours the moment the Council decided to exterminate our allies, Chen replied. You cannot match their numbers or their technology, Zintoril said. Chen smiled thinly. The Council believes that superiority in numbers and technology guarantees victory. Earth's history tells a different story. We've spent thousands of years developing the art of defeating superior forces through unconventional means. She handed him a tablet showing deployment orders for Earth's growing stealth fleet. The Council expects us to cower in fear, waiting for their armada to arrive. Instead, we're taking the fight to them. Operation Prometheus launches tomorrow. The Council believes they're hunting us. They're about to discover they've become the hunted. The Azdorathi monitoring station officers never saw the human vessel coming. One moment their sensors showed empty space. The next, alarms blared as their primary power core exploded. Emergency lighting bathed the command center in eerie red as security teams scrambled to defensive positions. Too late. 6 human operators in lightweight combat suits materialized inside the command center, having bypassed security barriers using technology that shouldn't exist outside the Council's most classified research facilities. The station's commander reached for his weapon only to find it disintegrating in his grip, molecularly dismantled by microscopic machines swarming across its surface. "This facility is now under Earth control," announced the human team leader, her voice translated perfectly into Uzdrathi click speech. "Surrender and you will not be harmed." Similar scenes played out across Council space over the following weeks. 47 strategic outposts fell to the humans' Ghost Fleet, vessels incorporating Valoran quantum displacement technology with Earth's unpredictable tactical doctrines. Council military leaders, accustomed to enemies who followed predictable patterns, found themselves confronting an adversary who struck from impossible angles using methods that defy classification. Aboard the UES Normandy, Commander Taylor reviewed the latest intelligence gathered from captured Council databases. His small fleet of 12 ships had achieved more in 3 weeks than the Council believed possible for a numerically inferior force. "They still don't understand what they're facing," said Valoran tactical advisor Kellan, examining the Council's increasingly frantic communication traffic. "Their central command is demanding standardized engagement protocols against a force that deliberately avoids patterns." Taylor nodded. "Their entire military doctrine relies on identifying and exploiting enemy behavioral patterns. When no pattern exists, their response efficiency drops dramatically." The Normandy's executive officer approached with an update. "Sir, the Kagoshima and Serengeti have completed their strikes against the Council subspace relay network. 37 communication nodes have been compromised with our quantum virus." "Excellent," Taylor replied. "Initiate Phase 2. Within hours, chaos erupted throughout Council space as their legendary communication network, unchanged for millennia, began transmitting contradictory orders, false alerts, and phantom enemy signatures. Entire defense fleets diverted to engage non-existent threats, while genuine human strikes went undetected until completion. On the Council throne world Azath, Director Kravosh faced unprecedented criticism from the gathered representatives. "How can a primitive species that achieved spaceflight mere centuries ago penetrate our most secure networks?" demanded the Valoran delegate, their typically melodious voice sharp with alarm. "They are using Valoran technology," Kravosh insisted, mandibles clicking in agitation. "Technology we deliberately suppressed because of its destabilizing potential." "Then your suppression failed," replied the Talarian representative. "And your assurance that humans would cower in their home system rather than retaliate has proven catastrophically wrong." Before Kravosh could respond, the chamber's secure displays flickered, revealing an unauthorized transmission. A human face. "Members of the Galactic Council," Admiral Chen said, her image crystal clear despite the impossibility of penetrating the chamber's quantum isolation field. "I am Admiral Helena Chen of Earth. Your director has undoubtedly assured you that the extermination of Valoran was necessary for galactic stability, and that humanity poses no genuine threat to your dominion." She gestured, and the display split to show simultaneous footage of human strike teams capturing Council facilities across multiple systems. "As you can see, both assessments were incorrect. Your Council has ruled through technological superiority and the fear of reprisal for so long that you've forgotten a fundamental principle that humans have never had the luxury to forget. Adaptability outperforms superiority when superiority grows complacent." Chen's expression hardened. "Earth did not seek this conflict. We offered friendship to the Valorans and would have gladly extended the same to the Council. Instead, you responded with genocide. Make no mistake, this is not merely retaliation. This is a fundamental challenge to your entire system of control." The transmission ended, leaving the Council chamber in stunned silence until the Valoran delegate spoke. "Director Kravosh, I formally move that we open communication channels with Earth to discuss cessation of hostilities." Kravosh's compound eyes flashed with rage. "Appeasement is not an option. I am implementing emergency protocols and assuming direct military control. We will crush these humans with overwhelming force." As Council ships across the galaxy received new deployment orders redirecting them toward Earth, none of their commanders noticed the subtle quantum signatures trailing their movements. Human stealth vessels, mapping every detail of the Council's battle strategy. The Great Council Chamber on Azaveth had never witnessed such discord. 3 of the 12 member species, the Elorans, Tellarites, and Morigi, had formally withdrawn their fleets from the planned assault on Earth, citing grave concerns about proportional response and historical precedent. Director Kravosh's exoskeleton vibrated with barely contained fury as he addressed the remaining council representatives. The humans have cleverly exploited your sympathies with surgical strikes that avoid civilian casualties, but make no mistake, this restraint is merely tactical. Once they secure their position, they will impose their chaotic nature on our ordered galaxy. The Tellarian ambassador rose, her crystalline form refracting light in patterns that conveyed deep skepticism. Your evidence, Director. Thus far, the humans have targeted only military installations directly involved in the Valoran action. Our own data shows they've evacuated Council civilian personnel before neutralizing each facility. They're manipulating you, Kravosh insisted, playing on your emotions, a weakness humans have weaponized throughout their history. Perhaps, the Eloran representative countered, they simply understand something the Council forgot millennia ago. That strength without compassion becomes tyranny. As the chamber erupted into overlapping arguments, a junior Azdrathi aide approached Kravosh with an urgent message. The director's compound eyes widened as he absorbed the information. This debate is irrelevant, he announced. I have activated the emergency powers provision. The combined Council fleet departs for Earth in 6 hours. 15,000 warships will end this human insurrection permanently. Meanwhile, in Earth's Himalayan command center, Admiral Chen studied the holographic display, showing the unprecedented Council fleet mobilization. They're coming exactly as predicted, she noted to her senior staff. Kravosh has consolidated all remaining loyal vessels into a single overwhelming force. Commander Taylor, recently returned from the Ghost Fleet campaign, examined the tactical projections. The Council species who've withdrawn support represent nearly 30% of their military capacity. That's better than we hoped for. But still leaves us outnumbered nearly 50-1. Chen reminded him. Taylor permitted himself a tight smile. Quantity has a quality all its own, but so does surprise. Chen nodded and activated the facility's secure communication system. Initiate Operation Thermopyla. All Earth defense forces to predetermined positions. Civilian evacuations to deep shelters complete within 12 hours. Across the solar system, humanity's carefully orchestrated defense plan unfolded. The Ghost Fleet vessels, scattered across key strategic positions, prepared their specialized payloads. Earth's orbital platforms reconfigured into formations that would appear random and disorganized to Council tactical analysis, while actually optimizing coverage for the quantum disruptor network. In what had once been Beijing's Forbidden City, now converted into a subterranean command bunker, Chen met with Ambassador Zentoril and the representatives of the 3 Council species who had broken ranks. You understand what's coming, Chen said without preamble. Kravosh will not stop with Earth. Any species that oppose the assault will be next. The Eloran delegate's translucent form rippled with concern. The director has already labeled us traitors. But many within our civilization still believe the Council's propaganda about human aggression. Then perhaps they should see the truth for themselves, Zentoril suggested, his once diplomatic tone hardened by months of witnessing humanity's preparations. He turned to Chen. The Valoran memory crystals, the ones containing the complete record of our civilization's destruction. Could they be broadcast throughout Council space during the battle? Chen considered this. Our quantum intrusion team believes we can hijack the Council's emergency broadcast network for approximately 6 minutes before their security protocols adapt. 6 minutes of truth, the Tellarian representative mused, crystal facets glimmering. After 30,000 years of controlled information, it might be enough. As the meeting concluded, Chen escorted Zentoril through the facility's memorial hall, where Earth's artists had worked with Valoran survivors to create a living monument, interactive displays preserving Valoran art, music, literature, and history. Your people have honored mine beyond any expectation, Zintoril said softly. When you found us, the Valorans were a fading echo of our former greatness. In death, you've given us immortality. Chen stopped before a wall displaying thousands of Valoran names, those confirmed lost in the genocide. This isn't just about honoring the past, Ambassador. It's about defining the future. For too long, the Council has decided which cultures thrive and which are suffocated. That ends tomorrow. Later that night, as the Council Armada entered the outskirts of the solar system, Chen stood at the viewport of her command center, watching Earth rotate serenely below. Humanity had faced extinction-level threats throughout its history, from nature, from itself, from the cosmos. Each time, they had adapted and survived. Admiral, her aide said, interrupting her thoughts, it's time. Chen turned from the viewport and strode to the command platform. Around her, humans worked alongside Valoran survivors and representatives of the Council's splinter factions, a vision of the cooperative future they were fighting to create. All defense grids activated. Taylor reported from his station. Ghost fleet in position. Quantum disruptors charged and ready. Chen surveyed the room one final time, then gave the order that would determine the fate of not just humanity, but countless species across the galaxy. Initiate Operation Thermopyla. Let's show the Council how Earth fights. The Battle of Earth lasted 6 hours, though historians would later argue it had been decided in the first 30 minutes. As the Council Armada entered Earth's orbital defense perimeter in perfect mathematical formation, they encountered not the desperate last stand they expected, but a carefully orchestrated trap millennia in the making. First came the quantum disruption wave, technology derived from Valoran research, but perfected by human engineers who approached the problem with fresh perspectives. Council ships suddenly found their targeting systems identifying friendly vessels as hostile, their perfect formations becoming deadly hazards as automation failed. Weapons fired at phantom targets or, worse, at allied ships. Then the Ghost Fleet struck, human vessels appearing from nowhere, employing tactics drawn from naval warfare dating back to ancient times, concepts so archaic they'd been purged from Council tactical databases as irrelevant. Flanking maneuvers, false retreats, feigned vulnerability to draw in Council ships before closing devastating traps. Aboard the Azdrathi flagship, Director Kravosh watched in mounting horror as the largest military force ever assembled began to fracture under the assault of an enemy they outnumbered 50-1. Impossible, he chittered as another battle group reported critical failures. Their technology is inferior, their numbers insignificant. His tactical officer's mandibles trembled. Director, the humans are broadcasting something throughout our communication network. We cannot block it. On every Council vessel across the Armada, displays activated without authorization. The footage was devastating in its simplicity, the unedited record of Valora's destruction, captured by observation posts, and the few Valoran ships that escaped. Council bridge crews watched in stunned silence as the methodical extermination of 6 billion souls played out before them. Following the footage came Admiral Chen's voice. This is what your leaders did without provocation. This is what awaits any civilization that questions Council authority. Is this the order you're fighting to preserve? Throughout the Council fleet, something unprecedented occurred. Individual commanders began questioning orders. Ships broke formation. Weapon systems were powered down. Meanwhile, Commander Taylor led the boldest operation in the battle, a direct assault on Kravosh's flagship with a small team of Earth's most elite special forces and Valoran survivors. Using technology that allowed them to phase through solid matter for microseconds, they bypassed all security measures and fought their way to the command bridge. When the blast doors opened, Kravosh found himself facing not just Taylor, but Ambassador Zintoril. Impossible, the director hissed. You died with your world. Many did, Zintoril replied calmly. I survived to ensure they would be remembered, and that you would answer for your crimes. What no one anticipated was Kravosh's final act of desperation. activating the flagship's self-destruct sequence. As klaxons sounded the imminent detonation, Taylor made a split-second decision that would be studied in Earth's military academies for generations. Rather than retreating, he ordered his team to secure the quantum communication core, the linchpin of the Council's entire command structure. The extraction was completed with seconds to spare. Kravosh died with his ship, believing he'd denied the humans their final victory. Instead, he gave them the key to rewriting the galactic order. With control of the quantum communication network, Earth forces broadcast the command codes that permanently lock down weapons systems across the remaining Council fleet. The battle ended not with Earth's destruction, but with the Council Armada's surrender. 3 months later, representatives from 42 species gathered in Geneva for the signing of the Galactic Concordat, a new framework for interstellar relations based on principles of self-determination rather than imposed harmony. Admiral Chen stood at the podium, surveying the assembled delegates. The old council believed that difference was dangerous, that species should be guided toward uniformity for the galaxy's stability. Earth believes the opposite, that diversity of thought, culture, and approach is the greatest strength a civilization can possess. Beside her stood Ambassador Zintoril, now the leader of the Valoran survivors, establishing a new homeworld in a system gifted to them by the Ilorans. From humanity, we learn that pacifism without principle becomes merely submission. From the Valorans, humanity learned that technology without wisdom becomes merely destruction. Together, we offer the galaxy a middle path. The first act of the Concordat was the establishment of the Valoran Memorial Initiative, a massive undertaking to preserve and share the cultural heritage of species lost to Council corrections throughout history. Archaeological teams were dispatched to worlds long forgotten, recovering fragments of civilizations extinguished for the crime of innovation. 1 year to the day after the Battle of Earth, Admiral Chen and Commander Taylor stood on a hilltop overlooking the newly established city of New Luminera on the Valoran homeworld in exile. Thousands of rescued Valoran children now attended schools where they learned both their ancestral traditions and new ideas from cultures across the galaxy. "Do you think we've seen the last of the Council hardliners?" Taylor asked, watching the sunset paint the crystalline buildings in shades of gold and amber. "No," Chen replied honestly. "Empires don't disappear overnight, but we've broken their myth of invincibility. Species that lived in fear for millennia now know that even the most entrenched power can be overcome when different civilizations stand together." Below them, a mixed group of human and Valoran children played in a park designed with elements from both cultures. One small Valoran girl looked up, recognizing the famous human leaders, and waved all 4 hands enthusiastically. Chen waved back, a rare smile crossing her face. "That's why we fought, Taylor. Not just for justice or vengeance, but for her future, for a galaxy where no child grows up believing their people's potential must be sacrificed for someone else's definition of harmony." As twilight descended on New Luminera, memorial beacons activated across the city, holographic displays showing images of old Valora, preserving the memory of what was lost while illuminating the path toward what might yet be built from its ashes.